Hello everyone. So it's day 21 and today is 24th March and I didn't found any important article in the Indian Express newspaper but there are few important article with respect to international relation, polity and other section on the Hindu newspaper. So there's a page on the Hindu newspaper which is FAQ, frequently asked question. So there is an important article that I would like to read that how bad is the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. So why are several UN agencies warning about a severe food shortage and famine in the war-torn Palestinian enclave? And what is the state of Gaza's economy? Why is more aid not being allowed? What is Israel's stand and what lies ahead? So let us see what this article is about to say. The story so far: as Israel's war on Gaza is reaching its sixth month, the Palestinian enclave has become the world's largest open air graveyard, as the EU's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell put it. The UN has warned that a famine in the tiny strip of land with 2.3 million people is imminent. Despite growing international calls for a ceasefire, the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows that it would continue its military operation until Hamas is dismantled. Oh, so what is the situation in Gaza? So the war, which started after Hamas October 7, 2023 attacks in Israel, in which at least 1,200 people were killed, has already destroyed much of Gaza and pushed most of its enclaves population to the southern town of Rafah. According to Gaza's health authorities, the over 5 months of Israeli attack has killed at least 32,000 Palestinians, a vast majority of them women and children. More than 74,000 people have been injured. So Gaza lacks enough hospitals, medical professionals, medicines, clean water, and other healthcare facilities to treat the wounded. We see patients trying to recover from life-saving surgeries and losses of limbs, or sick with cancer or diabetes, mothers who have just given birth or newborn babies, all suffering from hunger and the diseases that stalk it. The World Health Organization has said. So most of the internally displaced people, roughly 2 million, are living in the makeshift camps in the south. According to the UN, at the schools that sheltered refugees, each toilet and shower are shared by hundreds of people. Diseases associated with poor sanitation, such as hepatitis A, diarrhea, and other infections, are rampant. As per the latest report from the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Before the war, there was enough food in Gaza to feed its population and malnutrition was rare. Now, over a million people are expected to face catastrophic hunger unless significantly more food is allowed to enter Gaza. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said. So, why is there a severe hunger crisis? The IPC report states that Gaza is now experiencing the most severe hunger crisis anywhere in the world. If October 7, if before October 7.8% of children under 5 were acutely malnourished, that figure went up to 12.4% to 16.4% in February. Gaza needs an immediate increase in the supply of food, water, and other essential supplies, it said. Children are dying from the combined effect of malnutrition and disease, and the situation has gradually worsened over the past 5 months. If the percentage of Gaza's population experiencing famine was roughly 30% in February, it went up to 50% by mid March. In northern Gaza alone, at least 27 Palestinians, mostly children, have died due to malnutrition and dehydration, according to authorities. The north, where around 300,000 people are still living, has been mostly cut off from supplies as Israel has sealed off the border except one checkpoint that was opened. Most of the aid that enters Gaza passes through two checkpoints in the south. Experts usually look at three criteria to determine a famine: extreme lack of access to food, high levels of acute malnutrition, and children death. Northern Gaza is already facing extreme lack of access to food and malnutrition level, and child deaths are steadily on the rise, which prompted the UN and several global powers to issue current urgent calls for the ceasefire and more supplies for the Gaza's population. So what led Gaza to the brink? Before October 7, around 600 trucks entered Gaza daily, which roughly 150 carried food. Since then, Gaza's economy has been destroyed by the war. According to the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization, half of croplands in the north and the breadbasket of the strip had been damaged in the war. Israel's incessant bombing has also damaged Gaza City's port, which practically destroyed the fishing sector, a major source of income for the Gazans. Government institutions are not working, and construction and other activities came to a grinding halt. This pushed almost all of the population to be dependent on aid, which means the demand for its supplies went up many times. But the average number of trucks entering Gaza has come down from 600 to October to 200 today, according to the UN, which accentuated the crisis that was already unfolding because of the destruction of Gaza's economy. In February, and Israel forces opened fire at a crowd that had gathered near an aid convoy, triggering a stampede and killing over 100 Palestinians. To help elevate the crisis, the US and some European and Arab countries ramped up airdrops on Gaza. In one incident, a pallet crashed on to people waiting for food at its parachute failed to open, crushing at least 5 to death. As the crisis worsened with Israel's refusal to let more aid into the enclave, World Central Kitchen, a charity, sent supplies via the sea. The US is planning to build a pier on the coast of Gaza to send aid, but it will take months for this plan to be operational. The UN said last week that Israel's refusal to let more aid in in could be tantamount to using starvation as a weapon of war. The situation of hunger, starving, and famine is the result of Israel's extensive restriction on the entry and distribution of humanitarian aid and commercial goods, said UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk. So, is there a situation in the offing? Various UN agencies have made it clear that to quickly improve the situation, the war should be brought to an end. Gaza is going through its worst humanitarian tragedy. Its economy has been destroyed, population battered, aid supplies have fallen, and even the limited quantities of aid that reach the enclave are not being distributed properly because of hurdles that were created by ongoing fighting. The UN, which also lost over 100 employees, is understaffed, and UN workers are also starving. Israel allies in the West have acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, said last week that all of Gaza's population are experiencing severe levels of acute food insecurity, but their solution to the crisis is to find alternative ways to ramp up supplies without forcing Israel to open the border, which is unlikely to alleviate the crisis. What Gaza needs is an immediate ceasefire. But after over 5 months of fighting, Israel has barely achieved its declared objectives, such as freeing hostages or dismantling Hamas. Negotiations are ongoing under the mediation of Qatar, Egypt, and the US, but Israel and Hamas have not reached an agreement. Israel appears to be ready for a short term pause in fighting in return for the release of hostages, but Hamas seeks a lasting ceasefire and has also demanded the release of some high profile Palestinian prisoners, including Marwan Barghouti, the Fatah leader, who has been in Israeli jails for over 2 decades. As both sides reach no common ground, Israel, which continues to get weapons from the US, continues the war for now. So there's one other important article on this page that who may vote from home in Lok Sabha election. So this article is talking about service voters. So let us see what this article is about to say. In this, the first time such a facility has been rolled out, why are activists calling it for the rules to be amended? So what is the story so far? The Election Commission has extended its vote from home facility to persons with disabilities and senior citizens aged 85 and above for the Lok Sabha elections. This move will allow more than 85 lakh senior citizens and 88.4 lakh persons with disabilities to cast their votes through postal ballots. So, who is eligible? Efforts to make participation inclusive thus far have been contained to the polling site with a focus on setting up ramps, separate queues, wheelchairs, and parking facilities. The postal ballot home voting facility was amended to include senior citizens and people with disabilities. The benchmark disability should be not less than 40% of the specific disability as certified by the concerned authority. Generally, the tendency has been that senior citizens want to participate in the process and walk to the booth. But this time, we have given them options to vote in their homes, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar said. Those who opt for it with year are those who opt for it this year are not eligible to vote directly at the polling station on the polling day. Okay, the scheme is also useful as a senior voters may not prefer to step out during summer heat. An Andhra Pradesh official told the Hindu earlier. The Lok Sabha elections will be held between April 19 and June 1, which spells of heat waves are likely to hit most parts of the country. So, has it been tried out before? So, vote from home was previously tried out during assembly elections in select regions, allowing people with disabilities, senior citizens, and people affected by COVID 19 to avail the facilities. The Election Commission of India this year has, however, increased the upper age limit of elderly voters from 80 to 85 years. The ECI also extended the postal ballot option to media personnel covering polling day activities with authorization letters from the Election Commission and those part of essential services such as metros, railways, and healthcare. The option is also open for service voters such as personnel of the armed forces posted away from their hometowns, central armed police forces personnel deployed away from home, central and state police personnel on election duty, and polling personnel and embassy staff on postings. So, how may voters avail the facility? The key the key to the process is Form 12D, which is a letter informing the assistant returning officer that the person may not be in a position to go to the polling station to vote. The form can be downloaded online from the Election Commission of India website or collected from the office of the representative district officer of a parliamentary constituency. The form has to be filled and submitted within 5 days of notification of the polling date. While it is a great initiative, Dr. Satyendra Singh, a doctor and disability justice activist, say, says the policy may have to be tweaked for awareness gaps and procedural snarls. Electors are required to deposit the form to the booth level officers or the ARO, a problematic requirement for people with disabilities. Ideally, if people with disability have the option to vote from home, they should be allowed to submit this form online too, he says, obviously. Once filled, two polling officials accompanied by a videographer and a security person will visit the elector's home and oversee the postal ballot voting process. The voter will receive an intimation about the date and approximate time of visit via SMS or through post. The home voting option will be attempted twice. The polling team will schedule a second visit if the elector fails to be at a given address during the first visit. During the visit, the polling team is expected to follow the protocol under the Conduct of Election Rules 1961. Each team of poll officers is required to A. Issue postal ballot to each of the absentee voters assigned to it. B. Brief the elector about the procedure to be followed for voting through postal ballot. C. Make sure that the elector voters without anyone influencing his her choice and ensure the secrecy of voting according to a November 2022 communique for the vote from home facility. People with blindness or physical infirmity are allowed to nominate a companion and take their assistance while home voting. So, what are the challenges? Dr. Singh foresees some logistical hiccups in coordination request, scheduling, and moving paraphernalia around. Moreover, do we have the machinery to fulfill this mammoth task? He asked. The scheme will also need a massive level of awareness generation, both among voters and polling officers, to attune the facility to people's needs. The Election Commission has launched a voters' guide outlining this issue. So, outlining the okay, so this article ended here. So there is another important article why DGCA forms on the new rules of pilot. So that is not so important. There is one important article from the ethics, or you say can say international relation point of view, that how bad is the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and from polity and governance point of view, that vote from home in Lok Sabha election. So these are two important articles from this newspaper. And there was nothing important in the Indian Express. And in the Hindu, there I find two important articles that I read today. So we'll meet with the March 25th newspaper tomorrow.